Hello. Good morning, everyone. So, Grandma Lois, which I have become, I never knew I would be Grandma Lois someday when I was a kid. And I was watching someone on YouTube this morning and they said, who would dream that this would happen? And they was talking about how they are doing so well. And it's just amazing what the Lord is doing with my videos. But I thank the Lord. But I was thinking, this morning about being content and being happy because so I see people that are not happy is that you can tell they're not happy. You really need to consider this. And it's Proverbs 23, 7th verse. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And I learned that back when I was in California working with. See, I was so innocent. I was like 18 years old, and I got this job in a factory working with black people, a lot of Mexicans, a homosexual woman who was not nice and did not like me. And I have told how, get your coffee. I'm going to tell this again. I have told it already in my other videos, but I had to get a job to make ends meet. But and I was always a Christian, and I found a good church, and I found a good friend at there working at that factory. We rubbed down aluminum window frames to make them shiny, and they didn't paint them or anything, just shiny. And that was our job. And we wore blue jeans that we rolled up, and moccasins that you put a nickel in, penny loafers they were called. So, are you getting your coffee? I'll give you time, or whatever you want to drink. Granny Patch, you can go get your Dr. Pepper. That's what she drinks. she don't get up this early. She goes to bed late and gets up late. Now I have a whole different schedule. I go to bed early and I get up early. So when I moved to California and I had to take that job while I was living there, and it was such a change because I just I was as dumb as anything and silly. But you know what? I had the Lord. So I said, I'm going to make it. So I made this friend named Ginger, and we used to they let us listen to the radio, and we could hear, glow, little glow worm, glimmer, glimmer. And that was such a popular song. And we told each other when we had to part because she had to go her way and I went mine. She got pregnant and had to let the baby get adopted out. She offered it to me when she heard that I couldn't have children, but it would have took $1,500. And what would I have done with the baby out there in an apartment working with my? I said, no, Ginger, honey, I can't take it. I'll just have to do something else someday and make it right now. But we heard that song by Nat King Cole. Pretend you're happy when you're blue. It's not very hard to do. Pretend you're happy when you're blue. It isn't very hard to do. The little things that you have got could mean a lot if you would just pretend. And I was crying all the time. I was so lonely. It was just like the pioneers moving west, never no more contact, maybe with your mama, your daddy, anybody. And so I was doing a lot of crying. And I heard that song. And this is where that verse comes in. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So I listened to that song by Nat King Cole, and you can find it on YouTube. And that song went directly to my heart. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? Because I'm going to pretend I'm happy and I'm not. So I started pretending I was happy. I would tell myself, because you believe what you tell yourself. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So I started saying, hey, this is fun. I love riding the bus, which I was doing. I loved working with these people, and I did because those Mexicans were fun. And now that little homosexual girl, she was not fun because I tell them about church and this and that and the other, It would always get into my conversation about, the Lord. And I've just been like that my whole life. So she just didn't like me. And I don't know. I think now when I look back on it, that it was the devil in her and the Jesus in me that was having a fight. You know, she just, he just made her hate me. And I didn't hate her, but she didn't like me. So for some reason or other, one day, and I don't remember exactly what happened, why she did it, but all of a sudden, she was in my face and she tried to push me. She just pushed me over, or tried to. And I caught my balance and I came up and I took my fist right like that and I just socked her right in the jaw. Shame on you, Claire. Well, my name was Clarine then, and some of them call me Lois. I've been called Lois, Clarine, whatever, and James calls me Claire, and I'm Lois on YouTube. And I thought about changing it to Grandma Lois Does Table Talk, because that's mainly what I do now. Just sit around and talk to y'all. So I hit her, wham, honey. She fell backward. I knocked her unconscious. She, I'm serious. And I started praying, oh, dear Jesus, I've killed her. Lord, don't let her die. Please don't. Because she was out. She was out like a light. I cold conked that girl. And I'll never forget it and how scary it was. And everybody was gathering around looking at her. And finally, somebody got some camphor or something and put it under her nose and broke this little bottle or whatever. And she woke up and she came to. And she got up and she was all right. And she says, I'm going home. I'm going home. And she went home. And that was the last I saw of her. And it was almost quitting time anyway. And I went home. And it was Friday evening. Work was over for that week. And Buddy and I was getting ready to go on a trip 30 days by bus back to Indiana and visit. He got a 30-day leave because he was getting reassigned to Eugene, Oregon, which that's where he was to report to when we came home. Well, anyway, we went on our vacation. We caught the bus and we rode on that bus 2 nights and 3 days and laid back in the seat sleeping. And there was a Mexican guy that had a guitar in the back seat, and he played that, and he could play that guitar. And that's how we got entertained while we was traveling. And it was a long trip. We finally got home. And so when we went home, we stayed with relatives here, there, and yonder. And we was staying at his brother's house, and we was riding with him in the car, and he had stopped, and somebody wham hit us in the rear, and I was in the back seat, and it gave me whiplash, and it hurt my whole body. The wham was so hard because I'm so tender, and I just couldn't hardly move. They just had to help me into the house. They came and ambulance came, said, do you need to go to the hospital? And I said, no, I think I'm all right. I believe I'll be okay. I just had bad whiplash. So I went on home and to his house, and I couldn't hardly get out of bed. So Buddy called headquarters, got in touch with them somehow or other. He said, we have been in a wreck and we cannot come home right at this time. Could you give me an extension? Well, they gave him an extension. So we could stay longer till I got well, which took a while. And I think it was maybe just a week or so extension, but I got so I could walk. And so the insurance company wanted to settle, and it was $1,000, and I took it, which I regretted later because I had migraine headaches then after that for years. But my neck finally got well, but it took a long time. Don't settle right away when you're in an accident. Wait and see what's going to happen. But like I was so young, I didn't. I was happy with the $1,000. So when we went back to California, and it was time for me to go back to work, I figured I was fired, but I did have a payday coming. So Buddy reported to headquarters. And when he reported to headquarters, they said, well, your orders have been changed. you're going to San Pedro or someplace, not long, or to Long Beach. I think we were at San Pedro. And then your boat is not, your ship is not going to Eugene, Oregon after all. It's going to be just a troop ship taking troops overseas, and you're going to be assigned to this USS Montreal and work in the laundry because he had, that's so he got assigned. And so we did not have to go to Eugene, Oregon. And I was so thrilled that we did, because, I wanted to be with him as close by as I could. Otherwise, he don't stay in the Navy because, he went AWOL 2 or 3 times. And I've told the stories in my other videos how he hitchhiked all the way. Him and another guy went over the wall in boot camp and came home 2 times. Third time he turned himself in, stayed, served his time 6 months in the brig, and went back. And when he went back to California for boot camp for the third time, I decided to go through circumstances and keep him in the Navy, which I did, because I would go when I got out there finally. I went straight to the boot camp place where he was in boot camp and talked to the head. I said, I want to talk to whoever is in command here. When I was 18 years old, I didn't have a lick of sense, but it worked. And so everybody helped me. And that one guy in the boot camp, head of the boot camp, said, well, we help people find housing when their wives are here. He said, and I happen to have one that just moved out, and I can let you have that one today. I mean, and then I had an apartment right like that. God goes before us and makes those crooked places straight when we don't have a lick of sense sometimes. In my case, that was true. Thank you, Jesus. I'm still thanking him for his goodness because he does it all the time. All right, so here we are. He's not going to Eugene, Oregon. And so I had that job, and we back where his ship is. And so it's time for me to go back to my factory and get my payday. And I've told this story before, but a lot of y'all are new and you haven't heard it. And my brothers, Norman and Denny, who watch me all the time, they know all about it. Because, when you're telling the truth, it stays the same every time because you lived it and I lived it. So I'm going back to the factory to get my payday, and it's a Monday morning. And as I come there, those Mexicans, my little friends, start clapping. Yay! Yay! She's back! And they call me the little fighting cock, roosters. And they say, there she is. There she, because I had knocked that girl out cold. And they were just giving me a cheer. And I thought, well, what's going on here? So I went into the office and told them I was back. And they said, well, get to work. I said, you didn't fire me? No, they didn't fire me. They fired the other girl. She's gone. And the Mexican told me that she's gone, but I didn't comprehend it that much. So I went back to work and worked till we moved elsewhere and had money. So it's amazing. But as a man thinketh in his heart, and we listen, me and Ginger, to pretend you're happy when you're blue. It isn't very hard to do. Little things can mean a lot if you would just pretend. And sometimes I've had to practice that again because I've went through some really hard times. And when Buddy passed away, it was tough, tough, tough. I just didn't think I'd get over it, but I finally did. You learn to live with what you have to live with. You have to make it. And there's only one way for me to make it, and that is with the help of the Lord. So that's what I do. And I tell you what, it'll work for you too. And I've told you more than once how to receive Jesus in your heart as your personal older brother, your Savior. Heavenly Father sent Jesus to make a way for all us people who mess up all the time. And you know what? We still mess up. But he is our advocate to the Heavenly Father, to the Father God, who is our Father. And Jesus is our elder brother. Like we're brothers and sisters in Christ when we receive Christ. And I've got quite a few of them on YouTube that do have YouTube channels, like Old Me, Living Better. He was a pastor for 50 years. And then um, Kentucky Life with Debbie. She's a Christian. Well, Grandma Chit Chat with Granny Pat. She's a Christian. And all of them believe in Jesus and God. And so Satan is, the Bible says that in John, the book of John, that Satan comes to rob, steal, and kill. And in John 10:10, it says, Jesus says, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And he has really done that for me, given me James as a third husband. I never dreamed I would be married 3 times. I was married 44 years the first time. That was it, kiddo. But then I got so lonely, I was walking at the mall because I always walked one way or the other to keep it. I think that's probably why I'm 91, is because I've always exercised. And even when I wasn't going to the mall after I lost Floyd, and that's where I met Floyd, number two, was walking at the mall. And he thought I was cute. And he thought that being I had married to a preacher and Buddy was gone and been dead, that I would be perfect. That don't work. I still have a mind of my own. But anyway, we had a relationship. He was number two, and he was more of a partner, and he'd come by the house, and I'd fix him lunch because I'm a caretaker. And it's just always good for me to have somebody to take care of. But I didn't want my grandkids. They would get on your nerves. I wanted my equal, somebody my age that would know the things I know. So when I'd been married to Floyd about 8 years, he started getting real forgetful. And his brother, older brother, died with Alzheimer's. His other sisters, and he had sisters and another brother, none of them had Alzheimer's. So I figured he wouldn't get it either because they were, a couple of them were older than him, one of them for sure. But I was wrong. When he started getting forgetful, and I had a motorhome, and so we would drive to Florida and I'd have to do the driving. And we went a lot of times with my sister and her husband. They had a motorhome, and we would park at the same park. And Floyd just got worse and worse. And the last time I took him, I had a bracelet on him that if he got lost, or died someplace, and because I would let him, he loved to ride his bicycle all over that campground and all around. And I just let him do whatever he wanted to. And my sister said, what if he dies out there somewhere? And then what are you going to do? I don't think about those kind of things. I think that God can provide. And I told her, I said, you know what? Let him enjoy while he can because he's enjoying this. And if I'm there or not, it's not going to change whether he passes away or not. But if he passes away, he's got his bracelet and they can contact me. I had my cell phone. I said, we'll take care of it. And it never happened because what reason she was saying that he had an aneurysm near his heart that could have popped any time and he would have been gone. And he had stents put in, and his doctor, last time I took him to the doctor in Louisville to the heart because he had some stents put in earlier and they discovered that aneurysm that could pop anytime. And I said, what if that happens? What happens then? And that doctor said to me, quote from the Bible, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I should have looked that up and showed it to you. But that, he said, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. He said, don't worry about it. He's a Christian. Yes, he was. He was a really good, honest man. Stingy as they come, but honest and good and didn't tell lies. If there's one thing that aggravates me, it's when people lie to me and I catch them. I never can bring myself to have confidence in them anymore when they fib to me and I catch them. So don't lie to Grandma Lois because, and I am apt to call you down. You know, I'll never forget when my nephew went to church camp Mark Burns. And he don't watch my YouTube, I don't think, but he knows it's true because he was 10 or 11 years old. And we sent our children to Pentecostal Church Camp Assembly of God at Crestwood, Kentucky, the boys and the girls. And they kept them separate, different ages, and they had their cabins and they had chaperones, just like down there where all those kids got washed away. Wonderful camps, but they do a lot of good. And my kids are still Christians, and so is Mark, a strong Christian. But I caught him in a fib, and he was caught. And I told him, I quoted to him in Revelations where liars do not go to heaven. Liars and whoremongers, and I don't know who all, you can look it up in uh, Revelation. The ones that are not going to make heaven. And I said, liars are among that bunch, Mark, and you just don't want to be a liar at all, ever. And he took that really to heart. And he really turned out a wonderful Christian father, raised his children. Now he's retired. Well, I think he still works some on the side. And I ran into him. He got real aggravated at me over something. Oh, yeah, when I started dating James, because his mother, Phyllis, did not want me to ever get married again or have a boyfriend. She just thought I should, because Buddy was so wonderful. But I married Floyd, and she had a fit over that. And then when I was dating James, she had a fit over that. And so Mark took his mother's side, and that I shouldn't have a boyfriend at all. And so when I ran into him not too long ago, we just hugged, and he said, I just love you. And he still loves his Aunt Clarine. And I love him. I never quit loving him. And his daughter, and he's a grandpa now, and he turned out well. And I'm just happy for Phyllis's family, because her family, her daughter ended up, who helped me and Buddy so much when we went on the evangelistic field. She worked at Springfield headquarters, because after Buddy got saved, I prayed for him 18 years. He got married. He got saved when he was around 36 or so. And then by the time he was, well, we went to church together. I got to sit with him a lot. I used to get aggravated because he would be working and I was there by myself, because I raised the kids in church when he wasn't around, because he was working or doing other things. And when finally he did get saved, and then he started singing with this gospel group. And so there he was on stage all the time singing. For 5 years, he sang with the King's Four Quartet. And he was the lead singer. And I would be down in the audience, and I always traveled with them. And then they got a bus, the King's Four Quartet. And they put out albums and all kinds of stuff. And they only did it on weekends. All of them had jobs. Did y'all see my cat over there? Now that cat looks just exactly like Big Tom. And ever so often he gets up and licks his paws. How they do these background YouTube stuff, I don't know. But I tell you what, I love it. And it's just comforting. And if you want to turn it up later, you can get music and hear birds singing. And the lake is back there and all the beautiful flowers. And you got your little fire burning. I started the fire there before I started my YouTube. What I did was I just turned it on. That's how I started the fire. I remember when I was growing up out on the farm. And we lived in a house that had a coal oil uh, furnace that we turned off at night in the living room. So we slept cold. The water would freeze in the house. But Daddy would get up in the morning and start the cook stove, because he always made the biscuits. And Mom would make the gravy and fry the eggs if we had them, if it was summertime. We didn't always have them, or make the oatmeal. But he started the fire. And so he always had kindling ready, and it was no trouble getting the fire started. And at night, when we went to bed, our feet would be so cold. Those beds would be so cold. Daddy would heat up. We had those iron, you had to put your iron on the stove to heat it up before you could iron your clothes. And that's how we ironed our clothes. We didn't have electric the first 2 years we was at the farm, living in our house that he finally got finished. And we moved into it. So we had this big stove. And at night, before we went to bed, we'd put the irons on the stove to warm, me and Phyllis would, because it was so cold. And we would wrap them in a towel and we'd put our feet on those irons to warm our feet because you just couldn't hardly get warm. It was so cold. We used, well, I tell you what, finally, when I was about 12, Grandma Ayers, Dad's mother, gave me and Phyllis a feather tick, which was like a quilt comforter, and it has feathers. Honey, that thing was as warm as it could be. When she gave that to us, then Phyllis quit trying to put her cold feet on me, which I would tell her, don't you put your cold feet on me. I'm going to write a line, because we had to sleep together, and she was 4 years younger. So I said, I'm going to put a line. You cannot cross it. That's my law. You cannot cross that line and put your cold feet on me. But after we had the irons, and she'd use that. We'd warm them up on the stove, and we was so tickled when Daddy. Now that stove did not have a hot water heater on it, but you could buy a hot water heater and put on the side. And he found one somewhere at an auction, and he put it on that stove, and we had hot dishwater. And when we wanted to wash up, and in the winter time on the farm, you did not take baths. You washed here, there, and yonder, all the important places. But we had warm water then when he got that thing that set on, because we kept it full of water, and we had to carry our water from the spring that we drank. But we had uh, big barrels that we put on the corner of the house, and that's where we got our water to wash the dishes. And but in the summer, now in the winter, the water would stay clear. But in the summertime, in the barrels, the mosquitoes would lay their eggs, and you would have mosquitoes everywhere. So you know what he would do? All you do is put a few drops of oil on the top of that water, pour it on the water, and the mosquitoes can't live. And that's how you kill the mosquitoes. And that's where we would get our water to do the dishes, and sometimes to do the wash. Now, Mom had a washing machine that had a motor on it. That was before we got electric. That she could hit that motor with her foot and start it, and we didn't have to use the wash tub anymore and those boards that you wash your clothes out and standing over. But we had double tubs that you could stand up and scrub those clothes. And we used lye soap, which will take the hide off your hands. It will take the hide off of anything. And Mom made her own lye soap. And Norman and I was talking about it some time ago, that she made her own lye out of ashes somehow or other. And I told him I didn't remember that, but you can do that. And she'd get her own lye, and she didn't. And you use uh, lard or soap to make soap, lye, and you can make lye soap. And that stuff is tough. It will take the hide off of you. You don't want to wash your face with it. So Norman used to wash his face when he was about 12. I remember this, and I was there. Norman would wash his face. He got a little pan of water. We kept a little pan of water. When it got dirty, you pitched it out the door, and right by the door, and a wash rags. And so he would wash his face right like this. And Mom would grab him, and she would get that wash rag, and she would go like this, and she would get his ears and his neck and everything. And he was clean when she got done with him. Norman, you know that's true. Him and Benita watch this. I haven't talked to him lately. I gotta give him a call. I've been trying to talk more to my brothers, and I'm not succeeding. Seems like I just get to doing all kinds of things, and life is interesting. And if you get blue, just say, "Look, I am going to be happy, and I'm going to trust the Lord, and I'm going to make it with the help of the Lord, and somehow or other you will make it. I guarantee you." And try to eat right and get your exercise. Now, I've always exercised, and back before James and I started walking at the Y, I would go run to Walmart, to Myers. In fact, is I'm going to Myers this morning. I want to tell you one more thing I think is interesting. I was telling James, I said, my friend, Kentucky Life with Debbie, is a natural on YouTube, because she can sit and talk and make fixing her husband lunch interesting. And I just can't quit watching her because she's so, well, you know what I did? I got these tomatoes and then I sliced them and then I did this and fascinating, Debbie. And then her girl turned 18 yesterday. And so happy birthday to her girl. That is that is a milestone. I thought the milestone was 16. When I turned 16, that's when I thought I should be on my own, get married, and move out of here because I'm tired of taking care of my mom's babies and cleaning her house. It's not my house. And I made my mind up that's what I was going to do. And if I could meet me a man that would have me, so I did. And I moved out. And I tell you what, I did it. Talk about a silly girl. And you know, when we got married, we didn't have no plans. Where we going to live? What we going to do? We didn't have no money hardly. Very little. His payday, because I didn't have any money. So he had enough money we could rent a little room. One room, $15 a week, that had a nice box and a stove and a bed, all in the one big room. Back then, changing the subject again, back in the 1950s, and this was 1950 when I got married, there was apartments in, what people would do was take a 3 bedroom or a 4 bedroom big old house and they would fix it up, put an extra bath or two, and rent each room to different couples or single whoever, and then they would collect every week. They just come by and get the rent. And most of them had ice boxes, which you had to dump the water every 2 or 3 days, and the iceman would come through, and that was your refrigerator. And I had a refrigerator in my apartment, and I had a stove, and Mom had gave me a skillet, an orange skillet, a pot, a couple of plates, and forks and knives, and a couple of quilts, and I was in business. Because I didn't have, nobody bought me anything. We just had to make out as we went. And how I washed the clothes when it was we didn't have a laundromat. We didn't go to no laundromat. And he worked at a bakery. And I washed we had a bathroom and wasn't anybody hardly living downstairs during the daytime. So I would wash the clothes in the bathtub on my knees with a scrubber that you put in the bathtub, and you wash them good and you rinse them out as best you can, run water. And back then they did have laundry soap you could put in and just bounce them up and down. And I tell you, he worked at that bakery and he would have flour all in it, and they were filthy. And I would wash his clothes, and then we had a clothesline, and I had some clothespins, hang them outside. Nobody stole them, I guarantee you. Well, it's been fun talking, and this has been a mishmash. But I, I think sometimes, what in the world, Lord, am I going to talk about next? And it seems like He always supplies, because I just enjoy talking to you. And I'm doing like old me, old me, better living. I tell you what, we're just talking one on one. Me and you, y'all get your drink. I've enjoyed my coffee. Going to enjoy it some more. I watched uh, Senior Insights. She's a sweet little gray-haired woman, and she does 2 things a day. And I don't have time to watch all of them, but I watch her pretty often, and she just sweet as she can be. And she says, "I'm going to talk off the top of my head," and I think that's what I've started doing, just talking off the top of my head. Whatever comes into my brain, I just talk about it because life goes on, and I'm always thinking about things and how I want to read this new book I've got going. There is so much I want to do, and I've got to I'm going to Myers, and it's time for my peanut butter cookies. And yesterday, just call me Debbie because she makes everything sound so interesting. I am going to go get my peanut butter cookies. But yesterday, my niece, Tammy, came over. What happened was this. Y'all ain't going to watch this all the way through anyhow, but I'm just having fun. I can't quit now. I want to tell you. Just call me Debbie. She's my little sister, except she's taller than me, I think. But I just love her. We're sisters. And that's a fact, Jack. So, anyway, Tammy came over because my fire stick, which I use all the time at both houses, at James's house, wasn't working right. And she is a tech genius, and she has helped me a lot of times on my fire sticks to get them running right. And I said, Tammy, you just got to come over and do that. Of course, she don't have a car, so she lives next door to me here on where I live. So we started over there, and we went over 11 o'clock, and so she unpacked. I had bought a new fire stick, but she says, "Let me see your old fire stick," because I couldn't make it mine anymore. Well, honey, she worked on that, and you know what? She said, "Let's put some batteries in it." And one of my remotes on my TV not working right, so she checked the bat. We needed new batteries and stuff. I just shake my head, but thank you, Tammy. Sometimes she watches my YouTubes. But she put new batteries in things, and then she started flipping. She said, "You know what? You don't need that new fire stick." And she had unpacked it and everything. But she said, "Send it back. You don't need it." So she put it back together perfectly, and I sent it back yesterday. And my things are working good. But while she was there, I said, Tammy, could you run the vacuum? Because I haven't had anybody run the vacuum lately. And so she ran the vacuum. Usually I get my one armed sweet girl, Jennifer, to do it, but I didn't have her. I had Tammy on hand. So Tammy just went ahead and ran the vacuum. I mean, she did it. She got every crook and cranny of that floor. And, I have cats. Well, yesterday I was watching Debbie and they were celebrating her girl's birthday and everything. She was going to make cake. But she showed us these things that you can rake your carpet with. And my carpet is not heavy carpet, it's just, area rugs that can get cat hair off everything. Well, I never saw them before. And she was telling all about them. And she's got a small one and she's got a dog. And she says, "These are so good." So I ordered me some, and they will be here Friday, I think. It's slow. But I got me a long handled one and a short one for my couches my chairs where they get on the back of the chairs and sleep. And it's got cat hair on it. So thank you, Debbie. I ordered them from Amazon, and I'll let you know how they do, but they'll be here. Oh, yeah. So thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Tammy. I am a blessed woman, and I got all y'all. And it ain't all of y'all, it's you, Pamela, Becky, and Clarence, though he had changed his name again to something which I don't understand. Clarence, put your name back to whatever it was. You've got me all confused, honey. But he still, he still comments all the time, and I love him. But I've got some, and Tom, and let's see, oh, David, and Texas, and I just remember a lot of you, but I can't name you all. I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. But I do know who you are. And I notice your names. And I appreciate y'all because a lot of y'all are watching all the way through because you're retired and you got time like I do, which I listen to some of them all the way through, but some I fast forward. You know who I fast forward? The queen of YouTube. And that's that sweet little lady, Helen in Georgia. And she's got the most beautiful scenery in the background. And sometimes I just don't listen to what she says because I'm looking at her scenery. She's got chickens and it's just gorgeous where she lives. And she's got a farm. And she's been on YouTube a long time and people love her and I love her too. But sometimes when I see that she's going to run 2 hours, she runs her she runs her stuff an hour and 5 minutes, and then she's got a son that will talk about drinking coffee or whatever, and he'll run a long time. I don't watch him much. I don't remember his name. I just don't remember his name. I'd rather watch a woman, somebody's in my age group, and there's a bunch of y'all out there, and like Sandra Brown, she's got she's got a good, and she's interesting, and she lost 10 pounds lately with the keto diet or something, and of course Senior Insights, and she's still not loud enough to suit Grandma Lois, and I turned my hearing aids up the other day, and I still, it's too soft. I don't know. I hope she gets her some mics like mine. Now I did show y'all those mics, and they are marvelous. See, I got one right here right now, and I got one on my iPad, and the other is stuck in the end of my iPad. And I'm sure that you can get some that will work with the computer if that's what she's using. But I love you, Cynthia. But I have to put on closed captioning, darling. And really, I like to hear you better than to read closed captioning. You're a sweet girl. And she meets 2 times a day with her, and she's an interesting girl, even when she talks off the top of her head, like I'm doing today. We just do it sometimes. But I do think about it a little. And I was just thinking, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And that's the way we are. Love you. Walk that path where Jesus would be pleased with you. Bye bye.